All right, for our first set of notes of the year, we are going to be talking about combining like terms. Now, this is something that you should be familiar with from 8th grade, 7th grade, and 6th grade, but let's just go through a review of it and the actual vocabulary as well. Okay, so we're going to go over the word coefficient. So, a coefficient is the number that multiplies a variable. So, for example, we have 6x right here. The letter or the number 6 would be the coefficient. In simpler terms, it is the number in front of the variable. A constant is the standalone number. Okay, so for example, here we have 6x plus 4. Okay, and 4, our positive 4, is our standalone number. It's the number that does not have a variable. It does not have a letter next to it. Okay, and as you're writing these terms down, you should be pausing the video and writing them down because I will be going through the vocabulary pretty fast. A variable is a letter that represents a number that changes. So, for instance, X, Y, A, H, B, it really doesn't matter. It's just the letter that's in the equation. It represents a number that we don't know yet. A term. Okay, so a term is a number or a number and a variable together, and it's separated by addition or subtraction. So for instance, this 6x plus 4 has two terms in it because we have a number and a variable together. So the 6x is the number and variable together. And then we have just one number, which is 4, and it's separated by this addition sign. So every time something's separated by addition, subtraction, okay, that is known as a term. So there's a term and here's a term. And then we have like terms, which is what we're going to be doing today. And it's terms with the same exact variable. So as we're looking at my example here, notice how I've kind of color coordinated everything. So 6x is its own term, but there's another term in here that's just like it. So if you remember, I'll link the video, but you should have watched the video beforehand where they talked about them having the same jersey on. Okay, they're on the same team. So this 6x right here and this negative 2x are on the same team because they have the same variable of x. Whereas our 4 and our 10 are going to be the same term as well because they're not wearing a jersey. They're not wearing an x or a y or an x squared, for instance, right here. Okay, this x squared is its own variable because, in its own team, because of the x squared. That x squared means x times x, whereas 6x is just 1x. So that's why those terms are different. So we're going to go through these really quickly. We're just going to talk about if they're like or unlike. So I have a 5 and a 8. So we're looking at those, and those are actually known as your constants. And so because they're both constants, they are alike. This next one where it's 9x and 8x squared. So as you hear me saying it, if that's one way that you understand it, when I say the term itself, x or 9x and 8x squared, notice how I'm not saying the same thing, like I have an additional squared on it, okay? So because I'm not saying the same thing, because they're not both either 9x or 8x, or 9x squared and 8x squared, these are not alike. Okay, so 9x is 9 times x, but 8x squared is 8 times x. So that's one more x, so therefore they're not wearing the same jersey. 12 and 7x, they are not alike. All right, right here, 2m squared and 3m squared. Okay, notice how I said the same thing, m squared, therefore these are alike. We have a 5xy and a 10x. So this one's a tricky one, okay? All right. Yes, 5xy has a 5x or an x in it, just as 10 does. But because there is no y right here, those are not the same term, okay? That 10 needed to have that y tied on with it for it to be alike. So because it doesn't, these are not alike terms. And last but not least, we have 20 mn and 13 mn, and these are alike. All right, so I'm just going to go through some of this examples. I'm not going to do all of them, but I will link. I'll take a picture of the completed notes with the answers. All right, so we're going through this one right here. It says simplify each expression by combining like terms. So notice how it says simplify. When it says simplify, that means you're not going to get just one simple answer, like one number. You're just going to leave it in the simplest terms. So as I'm looking through here, I'm going to highlight all the terms that are the same. So right now, my first term is 8m. So I'm going to look at every different term. This is 13g, this -8, this positive 3m, and this -g, and see which one also looks like 8m or is on the same team as 8m. All right, this 3m is on the same team. So what I'm going to do is when I combine them, I'm actually going to add them. So I have 8m plus 3m. And 8 plus 3 is 11. So we have 11m. All right. Now I'm going to go to my next term. So I have a positive 13g. So I'm looking for any other term that has g in it. Just one g. And this one at the end has one g. So I have 13g and a -g. So what that is 13g plus a -1g. So there's an imaginary 1 right here, okay? So I'm going to add a -1g, which gets me a positive 13 plus a -1g will get me a positive 12g. All right, and as I'm looking here, my -8, there's nothing else to combine with it, so I just bring it down. So it's a -8. So my answer is 11m plus 12g minus 8. Let's do one more. All right. So again, I'm going to look at my first term and combine everything that's the same as it. So we have 4b here. We have a positive b here. And notice how maybe some of us are tempted to say this is 1. But because this term has a and b, it makes it different than just my term with b. So I'm going to add my 4b plus my 1b. Because remember, if it's just a standalone b, it means it's 1. So altogether, I have a 5b. My next term is a positive 3. So I'm looking for anything else that's also a constant. Remember, the constant is a standalone number. And this -1 is that constant. So altogether, we have a positive 3 plus a -1, which gets us a positive 2. Our last term that we have is a positive 4ab. And since there's no other term that is like that, we're just going to swing it down. Ooh. We're just going to swing it down. So it's positive 4ab. All right, and this is our answer. All right, so I want you to try the next 4 on your own, and I'm going to post the picture of the answers of the whole notes completed for you to check them. All right, bye guys.